I'm going to focus on a story that continues actually throughout the first portions of the book of Genesis last week, including this week, and it continues. It's a drama that develops, and as we see, we'll see the drama is still happening. And this is the story of really Noach getting drunk. Anybody who reads the Torah, the Hebrew Bible, knows the story is very well articulated. It's one of the very famous stories. Noach survives the flood alone, him and his wife, his 3 sons and their wives. It's not a lot of people, it's 8 people, together with the animals who he has in the ark for a full year. They survive this great tsunami that destroys the planet, or much of the planet. And he emerges. He emerges to start civilization again. That's the story of Noach. But after the flood, he lives for a very long time. What does he do? We only know one story. And the story is that he plants a vineyard and he has too much to drink. And the Torah says he drinks a lot of wine and the alcohol affects him. He becomes inebriated, intoxicated, and revealed, exposed in his tent. And the consequences of that are very negative. One of his children, whose name is Cham, he has 3 children, Shem, Cham, Yafet. And Cham goes and tells the other brothers, and the other brothers come and cover up their father who has been naked because of his stupor, because of his inebriation. They cover him up with a cloak. And that's basically the thrust of the story. What's the point of the story? Noach lived, according to the Torah, for 950 years. We don't know many stories about him. What's the point of the story? Just to say that he got drunk? Is it about PTSD? Is it about his way of dealing with the flood? Is there another message here? It's very hard to understand what's the essence of the story. So the Zohar, which is the foundational book of Kabbalah, has a very fascinating comment. And the Zohar says that Noah was trying to repair what happened with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. They also dealt with a vine, because according to many opinions in the Talmud and the Midrash, the tree of knowledge was a vine. And Chava, Eve, gave Adam, she took a grape and she squeezed it and she gave him the juice, the grape juice or the wine from this tree. And that's what Adam and Eve consumed back in Genesis. And that's when they were expelled from the Garden of Eden. So Noah decided to go back to that vineyard of Adam and Eve and try to repair the situation, but it just didn't work out well. So this is a very fascinating commentary. What in the world is the connection between the vine in the Garden of Eden and the vine that Noach's planted and then gets drunk from it? The word "and he planted," Vayita, is found 3 times in the book of Genesis. The first is in the book Bereshit, where it says God plants a garden and a tree of knowledge, and he tells Adam and Eve, you can eat from all the trees, but not from the tree of knowledge. The second time the word "and he planted" is in Noach, where Noach plants a vine and then takes the grapes and ferments it to wine and then drinks and gets drunk. The third time we have, in 2 weeks from now, the portion of Vayera about Abraham and Sarah, the first Jews, the first Jewish couple. Vayita eshel be'Be'er Sheva. I'm just quoting the original words. And he plants also a tree in Be'er Sheva, and it becomes a place where people from all the world come, from the entire community and all over the world come. Vayikra Shem b'Shem Hashem kol olam, and he calls out in the name of God, the God of the universe. So that's a third time he planted. The Baal HaTurim, one of the great commentators, points out that this is the 3 times it says "and he planted" in the Bible. And it's all in the book of Genesis, Adam and Eve, Noach, and then Abraham and his wife Sarah. So what's the significance of all of this? What is the meaning of all of this? So the Alter Rebbe is the author of the Tanya, the founder of Chabad, Rabbi Shnei Zalman of Liadi, is known as the Alter Rebbe. And he, in one of his extraordinary discourses, he gives a psychological and emotional explanation to the words of the Zohar about what was really happening here. And this is a little journey that I want to go on today with you. It's pretty profound stuff. I find it very profound, very meaningful, but I want to at least take out one nugget and give an abbreviated version and the way it relates to us and why I think this is so relevant today as well. It's not just, a nice commentary of the Zohar and an interesting explanation in the words of the Zohar. And for this, we need to go in a little bit more to understand what is this idea of a tree of knowledge, Eitz Hadat, And why was it so bad to eat from the tree? Like, what's the big deal? Like, what, you eat a grape and then what, you die? Like, everything gets ruined? Like, what's this idea? You eat of a tree and it's like the forbidden fruit. What really happened? So the story really needs to be understood in a much deeper way. It says that Adam and Eve were naked before they ate from this tree, but they were not embarrassed. And then once they ate from the tree, they know that they're naked, and now they're full of shame. Noach, when he gets drunk, what happens? He becomes naked again. So it's almost like he's replicating the nakedness of Adam and Eve. But the nakedness of Adam and Eve before they ate from the tree was fine. There was no shame, and nobody was bothered by it. Suddenly, after they ate from the tree, the Torah says that Adam and Eve heard the voice of the sound of God, and they hid. So God says to Adam, where are you? So he says, I'm hiding because I'm naked. God says, you ate from the tree. Who told you that you're naked? You ate from the tree. Noach becomes naked again. It's fascinating. And from that moment on, we see that naturally people feel compelled to wear clothes, right? It's part of it. We'll have the whole story with the high priest and the priests in the temple who have special garments to cover them, and those garments are made out of beauty. They're beautiful, beautiful garments. So what is really going on here? So the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shnei Zalman of Liadi, explains this, and I'm just going to use my own words to really define the essence of what is happening here. The tree of knowledge, Eitz Hadat, the word knowledge, dat, in Hebrew, means intimacy. V'ha'adam yada et Chava. Adam knew Eve, and she becomes pregnant. It doesn't mean he had a resume of her, or he researched her on ChatGPT. Yada means Adam had intimacy with Eve. So dat in Kabbalah, in Jewish mysticism, is really connection. It's very, very deep intimacy. It's not only knowing something intellectually, but it's knowing something in your body. It's knowing something viscerally. It's like an inner knowing. You know, there's knowledge like a computer knows, like Google knows, like AI knows. That's very powerful, but it's information. And then there's information that goes into you, like intimacy, it's connection. Adam knew Eve and she had a baby. Doesn't mean he knew her intellectually. You don't have children that way. It means that there was a connection. There is physical connection, there's emotional connection, there's spiritual connection, there's also intellectual connection. But that is a real knowing that becomes internalized. So when you say the tree of knowledge, Eitz Hadat, the tree of knowledge, Tov v'Ra, that's what the Torah calls it, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It doesn't mean knowledge as an intellectual pursuit where I have information about good things and about evil things. That wouldn't have affected them. Dat actually means intimacy. When they ate from that tree, it's really a metaphor of a transformation that happens in their entire psyche. And that is, in simple words, the birth of the ego, the birth of self-consciousness. The birth of self-consciousness, this is what happens the moment Adam and Eve eat from the tree, and that's why they're too embarrassed to be naked. What is the ego? What is the self-consciousness? It's really the beginning of the work of humanity, and it's also the genesis of addiction and the genesis of really all trauma. You see, till they ate from the tree, they didn't feel themselves as separate beings. They just experienced themselves as conduits, as channels, almost like the relationship between a light bulb and the light. When you look at the light bulb, you just see the light. The light bulb is just the vessel, the container through which the light comes through. I once asked a great musician, what is how do you know that you're successful in the middle of a concert? How do you know? What does it mean? There's a nice applause, and he says, when I'm not there, when I'm not present, when my finger just becomes a channel for the music. My fingers are just conduits for the music. There's no self-consciousness. I'm a communicator. I speak a lot, for good or for bad, hopefully more for good. And I know it with my own work. How do I know that the speech is really successful? They invite me again. Oh, that's nice. I get a nice applause. That's nice. People compliment me. It's all nice. But really, the magic happens when I'm not speaking. What do you mean I'm not speaking? I am speaking. But I'm not speaking. My mouth, my consciousness, we call it in English, you go into flow. Every athlete will tell this to you, every artist, really any pursuit of life. When there's no ego, there's no self-conscious. As if I'm speaking and I'm thinking, they like me, they don't like me. You think they'll invite me again? You think I can ask for more money? You think they hate it? Why is somebody texting? Why is somebody distracting me? Why do I see somebody's face? They're making this sour face. That is the ego obstructing the energy. We have egos because we need to protect ourselves. But the birth of ego, that's the birth of separation. Ego stands for easing greatness out, but it also stands for easing God out. It's really the same thing. Because what is God? We could look at God also as ego. My ego versus God's ego, right? It was Voltaire, the great French philosopher who did not like Jews. And he once said, God is the greatest comedian whose audience forgot to laugh. It was Friedrich Nietzsche who said, if there is a God, I want to be God. And that's what the snake was telling Eve. There's a competition between you and God. He doesn't want you to eat from this fruit because he's scared of competition. He has all the power. And that's why you'll see that the name of God changes from Hashem Elokim to Elokim, which is concealment, tzimtzum. I'm using some kabbalistic language for those who know. If you don't, fine, we can move on. We're not going to explain everything. But the real point is that the snake, there's a very, very fascinating commentary in the Talmud and the Midrash. Rashi quotes it. That the snake had sexual intimacy with Chava, with Eve, and he injected toxicity into her. What is that supposed to mean? Kabbalistically, it means something very, very deep. The snake, the serpent, injected poison into her psyche. That poison is the poison of self-consciousness. It's the poison, it's this toxicity that I am separate from the cosmic oneness energy. Really, the basis of all Torah is Ein Od Milvado. This is the essence of all Kabbalah. There's oneness. We are all manifestations of oneness. All of us here, everything in the planet, the ecosystem demonstrates it. We are all givers and takers, and we're all part of an infinite oneness. It's not God versus you, God versus me. God is reality. We are all in reality. We are all part of reality. We are all aspects of reality. And in that deepest flow of energy, there's no separateness. There's just different channels. It's like the rays of the sun. There's one sun, and the rays manifest the sun in different ways. It gives vitamin B to one, and it gives energy, and it gives heat, and it comes into my home, and it comes into your home. Well, in Israel now, you don't have that anymore, but tomorrow morning, God willing. So we all are rays of the sun. There's no real competition. There's just different roles. It's like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. It's like limbs of a body. It's like notes in a symphony. But the ego does something else. The ego is easing God out, easing greatness out. The ego tells me, no, Rabbi Weiwa, you got to take care of yourself. This is a world of sharks, and you need to survive. And you survive by defending yourself in contrast to other people. This is where isolation is created. This is where ego is created. This is where I feel lonely, broken, alone, separate. Now I'm separate. And that's where trauma is born. The deepest trauma of all is the separateness that we experience from God, from when we ate from the tree of knowledge. And we all experience it when we're born. The soul is a piece of God. We're all one. But then the soul comes into a body, into an animal consciousness that feels itself as an ego. And now I need to learn how to survive. And all of us develop survival skills. We develop what we call today coping mechanisms. How to live as a separate reality. Even if I'm in a relationship with somebody, but there's give and take. It's transactional. What do I get for it? What do you get for it? Are you dangerous? Are you not dangerous? Every time our vigilance comes from this. All of our social anxiety, all of our internal anxiety. The internal anxiety is me not knowing what is my place in the world. Am I loved? Am I not loved? Do I matter? Do I not matter? And many of us work very, very hard in order to make believe that we matter. Some of us become tycoons. Some of us become intellectual geniuses. Some of us become great influencers. Some of us become successful in whatever field we feel talented. But very often there's a poison undermining it, because under it is a deep, deep insecurity, a very, very deep void. I hope some of you relate to what I'm talking about. I relate to this very much. This is all the toxicity of the snake. This is where all real shame comes from. And those of us who are sensitive and spiritual feel it terribly. It's very, very hard. Before they eat, they're naked. They're completely comfortable in their own skin, because their skin is just a channel for the light. So just like a baby is not afraid to run around the house naked, and hey, he's so cute, he's so cute. When your baby becomes 14 years old and runs around the house naked, it's not so cute anymore. But when they're little, they're so innocent because there's no corruption there. There's no manipulation. There's no exploitation. It's just innocence. But it comes because of childhood. It's because of the innocence of children who could run around the house without a diaper and everybody finds it cute. Adam and Eve had that innocence. They had that purity. We all have that innocence deep, deep inside of us. But then we learn very fast that you need to protect it. Because if you don't protect it, you're going to be stepped on. You're going to be killed. You're going to be destroyed. You will be humiliated. And now the question is, it was Hemingway who said, life breaks all people. And then some people learn how to live in broken places better than others. He didn't. He committed suicide. How well do you learn how to live in broken places? But at the core of it is brokenness. You understand what I'm saying? That brokenness is the brokenness of existence. The Kabbalah talks about the tzimtzum, that the infinite has become concealed. And now it's about me surviving in my world and you surviving in your world. Now, sometimes our coping mechanism is kindness. I become goody-goody. Everybody loves me. I'm the nicest person in the world. But deep down, I don't accept myself. I hate myself. Right? For some of us, the coping mechanism is aggression, toughness. We call it confidence. It's not confidence. I'm tough as nails. I will not bend. I don't know how to say I'm sorry. Everybody has their own way. You know, in neuroscience, you have the fight response and flight response and freeze response and fawn response because there is a danger. The amygdala notices danger. And this is true on every level. And the deepest danger is, I'm alone in the world. How am I going to fend for myself? And all of our coping mechanisms that come from ego create the personality that we become, and it affects all of our relationships. Noah sees all of this, and he knows that this is the beginning of the end. This is where man becomes detached from God. This is where the people become detached from their own energy. I don't know myself anymore. All I know is what you think about me and what I think you think about me and what the world thinks about me, and how do I figure out positioning myself in my family. So I have to know my father, I have to know my mother, my brothers, my sisters, my teachers, my community, and then we each figure ourselves out and we do the best we can with the tools we have. But deep down there's an anxiety. Those of us who are more sensitive develop all types of traumas and then addictions. All addictions is to take us out of the self-consciousness. It's so hard to live with this burden of self. I go into a wedding and I feel myself. I go into a bar mitzvah and I feel myself. I go into a shul and I feel myself. I'm not comfortable in my own skin. I'm not in flow. I'm feeling myself too much. So people drink. So people go to porn addiction. So people become gamblers. So people are sitting hours on Netflix. These are all distractions. Some of us binge. We eat. Some of us become workaholics. Some of us spend hours in gym or reading. But get me out of my head. Get me out of my brain. If you don't relate to what I'm saying, amazing. If you do relate to what I'm saying, you know what I'm talking about. Get me out of my brain. Can you get me out of my brain? All addiction is, get me out of my brain. Get me out of my ego. Get me out of my self-consciousness. I'll do anything. Of course, drugs is a very, very powerful tool for this. But it's really not just the drug addicts among us and the alcoholics among us. That's fiction. It's all of us. All of us running into different things. Sometimes very, very good things. Very good things. In my life, I have my own pain, my own anxiety, and I did a lot of good things because of it. But at the core of it, it could be poison. It could be toxicity. So the tree of knowledge is not just a tree of bad, it's also a tree of good. But even the goodness is contaminated because it's driven by an inner sense of brokenness, by an inner sense of shame, by the fact that I can't face my nakedness. I don't like myself. I don't know who I am. And the more I pursue my ego, the less I find myself, because you can only find yourself in what the great Hasidic masters called bittul. Bittul means when I surrender my ego to oneness. And that's when I can experience the bliss, because that is who I really am. As long as I separate myself, I don't exist. So I'm trying to create something that doesn't really exist. It's like a Ponzi scheme. We're not going to get into Ponzi schemes, but what is it really, right? You're taking money from investors. We know about the famous event that rocked America and the Jewish community especially. You're taking millions or billions of dollars, but it's not. It's a bottomless pit. There's nothing real happening. There's no growth happening. The ego is the same thing. I'm investing in something that doesn't really exist. It's a Ponzi scheme, and that's why it never feels good. Yeah, I used to, I know this is not group therapy here, but I'll talk about myself for a moment. I've been speaking and teaching for many, many years, but I had to do a lot of inner work as well, because there was something very torturous about it. I would finish a speech, and I desperately felt that I needed the compliments from the people. And it was torturous, because my mood was dependent on how they would give me feedback. If it was positive feedback, I felt good for 5 minutes. If it was negative feedback, I felt like a shmata. And there was no core self, because that's exactly what the ego is. The ego doesn't really exist. So as much as like pouring water into a cup that has a hole, it has a bottomless pit. You pour and pour and pour and pour and pour and pour, but nothing gets filled up because there's no core. There's nothing that really exists there. So you can have the whole world worshiping you. You can have amazing financial success, social success, intellectual success, spiritual success, psychological success. The whole world may worship you, and you may be looking as though, say, I'm doing well, look what I built. But you know where your relationships are going to be tested most? With your spouse and with your children, because they feel the truth. Right? Other people, they don't mind being entertained. I know with my life, I was pretty good. I was pretty successful in my communication, and people got very entertained. But in my own home, things started to fall apart, because that's the price of disalignment, when you're not really aligned. So Noach was a brilliant, brilliant man. He says, look what happened. This whole world went crazy. All the war in the world, all the violence in the world, what is it? It's people not knowing their own spiritual energy. Why do I hate you? Why do you hate anybody in the world? Why is there jealousy? Why is there violence? It's people who do not, when we are not aligned with our spiritual energy, we can kill each other. And that's why all healing happens inside. Inside. The Baal Shem Tov says everybody is a mirror. Everything is a mirror. It's all inside. That's where the real work is. So Noach sees what happens. The world went crazy. So he decides we have to go back to that moment where everything came apart. And this is psychologically, what this means is, so many of our lives are guided by the fact that we don't want to go back to the breaking point where it all happened. It's too painful. So if I was 3 years old, for example, and I was full of love, and I needed that love coming back to me from my parents or from my caregivers, and I couldn't get it because they were not regulated, they couldn't be present, they have their own trauma. So what do? I shut down my heart. I say, I'm too needy. I'm a burden. This is not going to be successful. I want the acceptance of my father and my mother, and I can't get it. I can't get it the way I need it, so I blame myself. Maybe I'm too emotional. Maybe I'm too needy. Maybe I'm too babyish. Maybe I'm too vulnerable. Maybe I'm too authentic. And I shut down those parts. And it's painful. It's painful because I don't want to get a dagger in my chest every day as a 3-year-old. So I just learned, shut down your heart, you baby. You're a baby. Just be a big boy and stop crying and be successful in school, and you'll give nachas and everything will be fine. And that's what some of us do. And every one of us does it in different, brilliant, brilliant ways, but a certain part of us shuts down. And those who trigger those parts, usually our marriage partners, become our enemies when we don't do the work. I find a huge amount of divorces today, and not just divorces, but challenges in marriages, because people are not facing their own inner trauma. Everybody, women need to do this work deeply. Men need to do this work deeply. This doesn't mean my wife or my husband are perfect, that I'm the problem. What it does mean is that everything changes when we do their inner work. Noach understands there's only one way. You have to go back to the wound. The way out of pain is usually through pain. What we resist persists. So he decides we got to go back. And that's why he goes back to the vine. It's not just physically he gets drunk. There's a very deep spiritual mechanism. Noach wants to get drunk. He wants to lose consciousness. When people are drunk, their egos are dulled. Their egos are numb. Everybody knows, you have people come to a party, what do they drink? They want to be loose. They don't want to be self-conscious. They want to be able to tell people whatever they want to say. That's what happens. The Talmud says on Purim we drink ad lo yada until you don't know what hit you. What's ad lo yada? Until you go away from Eitz Hadat. This is very deep. Eitz Hadat is the knowledge of dat, of self-consciousness, of things, internalizing the ego. I'm this. Do you like me? You don't like me. You think I'm good. You think I'm very good. You think I'm beautiful. You think I'm handsome. You think I'm successful. I'm busy living in my separateness. So on Purim, we drink ad lo yada, till you get rid of the Eitz Hadat. So that's what Noach wanted. And he becomes naked. Great. Back to Adam and Eve. We're naked. Everybody could be naked. It's more than being physically naked. I'm not going to take off my clothes now, don't worry. It's talking about emotionally naked. Physically naked, okay, big deal. Emotionally naked is not so easy. What does it look like when people are completely naked, completely vulnerable? It's a different energy. Everybody knows that. When people's egos get broken, they become very, very honest. And that's when you connect to people. Really, most marriages, why can't people connect? Because everybody's busy with defense mechanisms. I have my clothes, you have your clothes, I'm protecting myself, you're protecting yourself. I have a bulletproof vest, you have a bulletproof jacket. Nobody could really talk. So Noach says, can we become naked? No, we can't. We have to drink. So he gets drunk. He's really trying to heal the issue. But the Zohar says that didn't work. And the reason it didn't work is because once we ate from the tree, we can't just get drunk. We need to work through the ego. And that's the beauty that happens after eating the tree. We need to work through the ego. I can't just take a lot of alcohol or go on another journey and lose my ego. That will be blissful for a few hours or maybe for a few days. But ultimately, the inner self remains wounded. And when I come back, the ego comes back. So now the work is to work with the defenders. Now the work is to work with my mind and with my heart and with my inner personality and open it up. Now the work is to crack the ego, not through an outside stimuli, although that can sometimes help, but really to bring it back into my system, to really be able to appreciate the fact that we can't go back to the place of where we're just naked and we have no self-consciousness. But we do something even deeper than that. And that is we create alignment and bittul within our personalities. For this, we have to work through the toxicity of the snake. We call it the Yetzer Hara. I need to be able to be honest. What are my fears? What are my wounds? What are my deepest desires? Why am I so afraid of connection? Why am I so afraid of relationships? And I need to be able to find God within myself, not just by escaping the self. Many people go on healing journeys. They're very, very powerful. But as you can talk to a lot of people, the integration is really the work. The other parts are maybe 20%, 30%, 40%. They may open me up to my trauma. But the real work is what happens the day after, what happens 6 months from now. That's where the real work is. It's not about escapism. It's really about integration. And that's the great accomplishment. That's what Abraham and Sarah, they started to do. Vayita Eshel Bever Shava. Avram Avinu also planted, but he didn't just sit and get drunk. Vayikra Sham B'Shem Hashem Kel Olam. This is the one place in the Bible where God is not called the God of the world, but God, the world. God and the world are one. Not Kel Ha'olam, but Kel Olam. This is the idea of Achdus, the complete unity between the universe, the world, the ego. Olam means concealment, and Hashem. What that means is that ultimately we want to be able to create full integration with all the parts of ourselves. So now to bring it all together, there's a lot of discussion among Jewish leaders today about anti-Semitism, about Israel, about the future of the Jewish people, about assimilation, about Jews who care, about Jews who don't care, about Jews who hate Israel, Jews who love Israel. Are Jews safe? Are Jews not safe? What's going to be with our children? What's going to be in 2-3 generations, etc., etc. All these discussions. What's the future of Israel? What's the future of Gaza? I don't have to elaborate to an intelligent and inspired and dedicated group as yours about all of these dilemmas and crises and unique challenges that face the Jewish community, as well as the celebration of all the miracles that we have experienced in the last 2 years, together with all of the horrific tragedies and challenges. But what I want to say is that there's something that we often don't discuss, and that is the inner consciousness of the Jewish people, because that's where it really starts. I could give all the speeches in the world about Jewish continuity. I could speak about Israel and speak about Jewish pride and about dedicating money to the Jewish community and to Jewish education and to Jewish synagogues and to JCCs and to programs and of course to Israel. And that's very, very important because the vessels are critical in this world. I don't have to explain this to you. We all need infrastructure. But my dearest friends, the real deeper work, what most people avoid is our inner emotional stuff. If Judaism remains an abstract religion, cute culture, we eat gefilte fish and we visit Israel and we go to the Kotel and we want Jews to be healthy and happy and successful financially and emotionally, it's all beautiful and beautiful. But the 4,000 years of Jewish history with so much blood and sacrifice warrants us, and it invites us to go into a much deeper place in ourselves. Are we ready to do the emotional work that reveals the light of God in our souls? One thing you see from all the hostages that came out, which is beyond incredible, and this is what I want to conclude with. 20 hostages came back alive, October 13th, 2025, Hoshana Rabbah, exactly at the end of 2 years from their captivity, which is crazy. It's like Joseph. Joseph was in prison, and at the end of 2 years, day to day, he comes out of liberation. Even Trump couldn't orchestrate that, or Netanyahu. That's clearly divine providence. Now, you think these are people who were 2 years in hell. We know Jews who were in Auschwitz. Some of us knew very well Jews were in Auschwitz for a month, for 2 months, for 3 months, and they would tell you there's nothing to talk about. You can't even describe it. We don't understand what they went through. And here you have people who were there for 2 years in conditions that are beyond horrific. I don't even think we learned 10% of the stories. But there's a common denominator, at least for many of the hostages, and I really can't believe it even. They found in the darkest of places and in the most torturous of situations, I'm really even humbled to say it, it's even hard to talk about. They found this inexplicable, infinite light of God inside of themselves. And these are not people who were raised with this. Many of them call themselves atheists and secular and so on and so forth, but they found something that is inexplicable. I was watching the interview with one of the hostages. His name is Or Levy. He was in captivity for around almost 500 days. Or Levy. And these are the words, literally. Or Levy. Or means light, and Levy is his last name. So he says, I'm quoting it almost verbatim just from my memory, and he says as follows. He says, first I was in a home, locked up in a home in Gaza. And you know what I focused on? There was a crack in the wall. And the crack of the wall allowed light to come in. So that became my focus. That was like my liberty, my freedom. That was my reference of goodness, of emancipation, the crack in the wall. He says, then they took me down to a tunnel. And I was in a room in a tunnel. And my focus became an LED light. There was an LED light in the ceiling, and that's what I would concentrate on. That's what I would look on. That was like my symbol of hope, of light, of freedom. And he says, and then they put me into a dark room, completely dark. There was no crack, there was no window, there was no LED. It was just darkness. And he said, and that's when I found God. That's when I found God. There was nothing else. There was nothing else. That's when he found himself. I find that a calling to all of us. All of us living in freedom, thank God. We should all always have that freedom, and all of our hostages should experience endless freedom now among all of our people. But to be able to find that space where there's no anxiety, where there's full bliss, where there's full alignment, where there's full oneness, and takes a lot of inner emotional work, but that's the key core work of Judaism. This will set our people free, not just physically, but this will set our people free spiritually. And when our people are set free spiritually, the whole world is set free, because you could see the impact of the Jewish people on the world in ways that are inexplicable and super rational. Nobody even understands why a small people, 14 million, not even 1/4% of humanity, not even a quarter, has such an impact. But it has an impact because it's part of the fabric of reality, which is beyond the scope of our conversation today. When we will all be able to really do a lot of spiritual and emotional healing, the impact on the entire world is beyond what anybody imagines. I want to bless all of us that we should be able to heal from the malady of our own tree of knowledge, not through getting drunk, but through opening ourselves up to our true essence every moment and every day of our lives. Thank you so much for listening.
We're going to open up for questions. I think Michael has one.
Yeah, I do. That was really awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all that, Rabbi. My question is actually, it's how do you know when you're acting out of ego or in alignment with the light? Like, sometimes I think, and I'm trying and I'm aspiring to be more and more in alignment all the time. And then I have a little bit of doubt, but am I doing this from ego or not? And I don't know how to, I doubt myself, I guess is what I would say sometimes. And I'm wondering if you have any wisdom or advice on how to know what test I can put myself.
Such a good question. So I know for myself, I have three litmus tests for myself. They may help. They may resonate for you or not. If they resonate, great. If not, scratch it from the record. We'll tell the stenographer to scratch it. Litmus test number one is regulation. Whenever we make a decision from a place of ego and disconnection and brokenness, there's a lack of regulation. There's a lack of bliss. It says in Psalms, we say it in the morning, Oz v'chedva b'mkomo. In the divine space, there's confidence and there's joy. There's a blissfulness. Whenever there's a sense of urgency, go do it fast, there's a sense of a lack of calmness. There's almost like this internal urgency. That's a sign that there's an agenda here. There's something being covered up. When I'm really in alignment, there's a certain serenity and tranquility. It may take courage to go into that space, but you right away know there's like this system is like, oh wow. It's like almost like our whole system starts nodding in agreement. That's what it feels like. There's no point to prove because there's no exploitation, there's no manipulation. You see, part of trauma, and I think this is something I know I struggled with for many years, is many people don't even understand what we're talking about because we never tasted this type of reality. The only reality we tasted is survival. We learned how to survive brilliantly, like all animals, like all insects, like all reptiles, like all birds. We just do it with our sophisticated brains. But this is not about survival. This is actually about real connection with the source. So there's an inner light, an inner regulation that fills you. That's litmus test number one for me. Litmus test number two is the feedback from the people who are closest to me. That's very, very important. Sometimes people go on this journey, their wives are miserable. Their kids don't talk to them, but they're on a journey of enlightenment. It's very often BS, forgive me. Meaning, they may be exploring very deep things, but they substitute their pain with God and their selfishness with enlightenment. We need to get feedback constantly from people who are close to us. This doesn't mean they'll understand everything. This doesn't mean there won't be disagreements. But it means if the people who are closest to me are not rejoicing in my journey, there's something off. You know, some of the greatest heroes in history, including Jews, they're heroes to the world, but their own kids would not be on speaking terms with them. I don't know if you're familiar. Albert Einstein, right? Theodor Herzl. They were estranged from their families. There's a reason for this. Because there's an escapism. There's a trauma here. So we always want feedback from those people. The third element is the Torah. If I reach a conclusion and I see it's contrary to the Torah, then I know that there's a narcissistic element here. I always have to ask myself, is this against the Torah? The Torah is God's blueprint for life. So it's part of the system. Am I fighting the system or am I not fighting the system? Those are, for me, the three litmus tests.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you. That's helpful. I appreciate that.
Maybe Professor Kontorovich and then Joel.
Rabbi Jacobson, this was really fantastic. I had promised my daughter that I would give it over on Shabbat, but I'm going to struggle to do that. But you related what Noah did with drinking and the vine backwards to Adam and Hava. So could you, to complete the picture, perhaps mention, speaking of feedback from children, what was the role in this process of dealing with the ego and trauma of what his children then did to him, or the reaction of his children? How does that fit?
That's exactly what happened. Yeah, it's very deep. So it seems like, although this is not, I don't think it's explicit in the Zohar, but it seems like that Chum, his child Chum, which Chum means passion, heat. Yeah. He actually took it a step further. He took it a step downward. Because when he goes and he talks to everybody about the nakedness of Noach, he basically takes Noach's vulnerability and he manipulates it, right? Especially according to the sages that say he had sexual relationships with him or he castrated him, which basically are all forms of what we call today rape, abuse, molestation. What is really molestation? Molestation is taking somebody's most vulnerable, sacred space, which is their sexual energy, and using it for our own selfish purposes. And we see how it destroys emotionally young people more than almost anything in the world. right? Some people wonder, like, okay, so somebody touched me there, somebody did this, somebody did that. But the truth is, it violates the core. And that's really what happens. And that's why Noah curses him, and he says, you're going to be a slave. It's not really a curse, it's a consequence. Whenever the Torah speaks about a curse, it's a consequence. Noah says, if this is how you deal with somebody else's vulnerability, you will be a slave forever. Shem and the other boy, Shem and Yafes, understand, no, we have to protect our father. There's a crisis here. We have to protect him. And that's really the different response, right? There's a name of a book. Right. Stop asking, what's the expression? The name is What Happened to You. Stop asking me why I'm doing what I'm doing, and start asking me what happened to me, right? Not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you. The difference is, what's wrong with you means why you're such a miserable loser. What happened to you is, let me understand the brokenness that's prompting this behavior. It's a whole different approach. Don't tell me how bad I am. Find out what's happening with me and then help me heal. And those are the different approaches. Noach went through crazy, crazy trauma. The source of PTSD is Parshas Noach, because the flood, what is trauma? Trauma is the flood on the outside stopped, but the flood on the inside was never healed. Right? The circumstances, I'm not in the Vietnam anymore. I'm not in the Korean War. I'm not in Gaza. October 7th, thank God, is over. Outside, but not inside. Inside, it's not over. That's what trauma means. Noach's flood was over outside, but not inside. And with all of that, he drinks. He's trying to heal the world, but really he's escaping his own pain. And instead of understanding what happened to him, basically Chum says, oh, wow, look at this. Let's exploit it. And those are the two. That's the difference.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. It's really beautiful. I had a lot of thoughts when you were talking. First, it's amazing that you're talking about that light, because I'm reminded of Rashi in the Parsha, where he talks about how there's like this stone inside the
ark.
Teva, the ark, that as a fixation point that either emits light, Rashi argues, or it's a window for light. And of course, like the sages ask, like, what do you need light for? It's dark outside. And they bring out that this emitted its own light, so it could create a central focus point. And really, the story of the Teva is actually a story of like discovering the resources of selfhood as the structure that can resist external forces and endure. But the problem, of course, is that like when there's a temptation to turn that into an inward-oriented posture, where it's like, I can build myself up. I'm focused on myself. I'm focused on the internal processes, right? And then the problem is that that is not the same thing as a program for global transformation. And the program for global transformation, it vector completes what it is we're here for and what the world is here for. It doesn't just take like its focus as like, how do I preserve myself? It's oriented immediately towards like, who could I be in service to? What am I in service for? And that immediately it means no matter how beat up our cars are, no matter how kind of dented, warts and all, guess who signed up to be a shliach? The warts are signed up too. Right, and the faults are signed up for that too.
What you're saying is beautiful. I'm with you. I would only caution that this can also be used in a way of bypassing, as an excuse for bypassing. Sure. So you have to be very careful.
No, for sure. There's problems on both ends of that, but that's why the A-shell, every part of what is described by the A-shell is external service. Right. You're feeding people. Right. You're escorting people. And you're having them as guests. Those are the components of A-shell. Right. Those are all external interfaces.
But this came after 75 years of internal work.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. But anyway, I just want to thank you.
I'm just saying, people. Very often, I come from a community that grew up on the ethos of doing for everybody, and it's amazing because unbelievable things were accomplished because of it. But I've also found in my life and other lives that when we misread that, we can use that as a cover-up for avoiding our own inner trauma work and pain, because we're saving the world, and ultimately our work becomes very skin deep and superficial, because I think it was Carl Jung who said, you will never change anybody in the world more than you're ready to change yourself.
Yeah, well, then and then Carl Jung also, interestingly, was the head producer of the largest psychological journal, along with Goring, who was, with Nazis. He ended up being sort of, so it's very easy to fall into this kind of
Yeah, of course. No question. That's
very
why I
delicate.
said the
Both
third litmus
directions.
test is the Torah,
Yeah.
right? If I come to my wife and I say, I went on a journey, I did some LSD or whatever it is, and I decided I'm divorcing you and leaving 7 children, and you'll take care of them because I need to go to the Himalayas for 65 years
Yeah.
to meet oneness. You understand what I'm saying? It sounds
sure.
very
That's
beautiful, and there's
self-indulgent.
people who do this every
Very
day. There's people who do
self-indulgent,
this
yeah.
every day. So that's why it's very important to have an objective blueprint of what God's will in the world, because if not, enlightenment can become very narcissistic very fast.
Oh, yeah. Shkaya, Rabbi, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Rabbi Jacobson. Thank you so much for such incredible ideas. My question is about when we're talking about, and I really love this idea. I believe it's from the Alter Rebbe that there's 5 different modes of service to Hashem, and one of them is mitzvot, and then there's 4 that are emotional. And I guess my question is, when we think about this inner work of transformation, something I love about the mitzvot is it really grounds us in sustainable, integrated daily practice. And I'm curious because I want to really have intention and take seriously this kind of inner work, but sometimes I feel like the things that I end up finding feel a little bit woo-woo to me, and like a little bit too 3-day retreat here or like meditation there, and it's not like something that you can take every day throughout the day. And I'm curious, from a Torah perspective, what I know there's mindset shifts and things we can do, but I'm curious, what can we do as a practice to really ground us in this kind of work to make sure that we're on a path?
So I was on a podcast some time ago with my older brother, Rabbi Simon Jacobson, and he said something I thought it was very nice. He said, it's basically going to the spa every morning. Spa as in study, prayer, action, SPA. And I think those are the 3 pillars: Torah, Avoda, Gemilut Chasadim. The ethics of the Father says the world stands on 3 pillars: Torah, Avoda, Gemilut Chasadim. What does that mean in our life? It's going to the spa. So the first thing is study. When we study Torah consistently, we study Chumash and Rashi, we study Talmud, Mishnah, Halacha, Kabbalah, Hasidus, Musar, Machshava. Torah is infinite. Tanakh, Medrash, whatever it is, Zohar. But when you study, especially when you study not just technical ideas, which are also very important, but also you study the soul of Torah, it creates consciousness every day. I know for me, this is incumbent. Without it, it's like fasting for a few days. You can't survive. So studying Torah is something very grounding. It's very real. Sometimes I'm more in the mood, sometimes I'm not in the mood, but you go into it and you get into the mood. And even if you don't get into the mood, it's fine. Then there's prayer. Prayer is very, very important because prayer is the intimate connection. Torah study is learning. It's God speaking to me. Prayer is me speaking to God. You know what I mean? In a marriage, sometimes my wife speaks to me and I listen. I try to listen. And then sometimes I need to speak to my wife and give her my heart. That's Torah and prayer. Study and prayer. Torah, God speaks to me and I need to listen. And prayer, I speak to God. So prayer is really the work of going through our insecurities, our layers and layers and layers, and finding the heart that's always hidden, the Ava Mesoteres, the inner secret bliss that is always there because the soul is a piece of infinity. That's what prayer is. That's the foundation of living a healthy life and functioning in our daily life with full presence, full awareness, full alignment. And then there is the action, mitzvahs. And the action is literally throughout the entire day. We have a blueprint of how to be in alignment and action. It's how I eat, it's what I eat. It's blessings before I eat, it's blessings after I eat, after I go to the bathroom. It's the charity we give, it's the way we conduct business, it's the way I go to a business meeting. There's shacharit, there's mincha, there's ma'ariv mitzvahs. There's 630 mitzvah today, and they don't all apply, right? The males, females, whatever it is, but those are the grounding actions that really create a real relationship. If it's just in the brain and it's just in the heart, as you said, there's something fundamentally missing. It's almost like I'll tell my wife and I'll say, Esti, I'm a husband in the mind, I'm a husband in the heart. She says, yeah, but we need milk. I said, I don't go down to these trivial stuff. But we need bread, but my sister's at the airport. I need you to pick her up. I have to send this. I don't do that. I'm good for romance. You know what I mean? That's not a marriage. It's the daily commitments. Could you help me make dinner? Can you take out the garbage? Can you fix this in the house? Whatever it is, mitzvahs represent a real relationship that's ongoing. And without that, it's just there's an emptiness that starts saturating us.
I'll jump in. I mean, it's Parsha Noah, and I've been kind of taken by the idea of the Noahide laws and the how we might speak to those around us who maybe aren't part of the Jewish community, but that we are this light. And I always think this is the Parsha to really think about. So I just if there's, you do so much speaking and connect so many different people, I'm wondering if you have any takeaways or lessons.
Sure.
This
is not just an important topic, it's maybe one of the most relevant topics. And that is the Maimonides writes, to put it very succinctly, Maimonides is the greatest legal codifier in Jewish history, Rambam. And he writes in the Laws of Kings that Moses, when he came down from Sinai, he gave the Jewish people an instruction from God that part of their responsibility is to influence all human beings living on the planet to observe and internalize and practice the 7 laws that were given to Noach and his children. Now, this is fascinating because most Jews, even ultra-Orthodox Jews who spend their life learning Torah, don't know this. And the reason is because for most of our history, it was completely irrelevant. We were on the defense. At best, we were trying to observe our own religion. Now imagine us going to the non-Jews and saying to observe the Noahide laws. Forget it. Today, it's actually one of the first moments in history that this mitzvah is amazingly applicable. And that's why it was in the early 1980s that the Lubavitcher Rebbe began publicly calling that he feels that this is a time that every Jew who has any contact with any non-Jew should begin observing this mitzvah. And he says, you don't realize that this will create a revolution in the world, and it will create more respect for the Jewish people. Because it's not coming from, I don't need you to be Jewish. I'm not trying to proselytize you. We're not trying to get into an argument in theology with any religion or any tribe or any philosophy. It's really Jews represent, the world knows that Jews are different. They scream it from the rooftops 24/7. We're the only ones who say we're not different and Israel is the same. And when Jews actually become flag bearers, when we carry the baton and we actually become the poster boys, the conduits to say, this is what we heard at Sinai. This will make our world a much, much better place. The Rebbe felt that this will have a tremendously positive impact on civilization. Unfortunately, this was not yet done in a serious way. And I think that it's a high time to really consider this because we're anyway in the spotlight. We were always in the spotlight. We're still in the spotlight, right? Why don't we use it for what we were sent to use it? And that is to redeem the world, to heal the world from violence, from selfishness, from a moral breakdown. So yeah, it's a big one.
Amen. Yeah. We have a project in this space I'd love to share with you at some point. But
okay, this is something that I think is bigger than any one person, obviously, or one organization. We have 8 billion people in the world, and they're all waiting to be reached, or at least many of them are waiting to be reached.
Rabbi, what Michael's talking about has had a lot of thoughts, so we should connect on that separately. It's really phenomenal. But we really appreciate the last hour. Thanks to Nate for setting everything up. Rabbi YY, we know how rare and unique this opportunity was, and I think each of us truly values it.
Thank you all.
We're looking forward to sharing that video beyond, and I hope we can live up to heed these powerful messages.
One moment at a time, 1 hour at a time. Sending my love and blessings to all. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Benji, good to see you as well, Rabbi. Good to see you.
Nice to me. Hatzlacha. Blessings to all. God bless you.